Good morning. The market refuses to give it up, which we thought might be the case early in the week after last week's strength. And it's just been a grind here, which is good, but it's not great. Why isn't it great? Because so far on the daily time frame, there hasn't been any like fake outs. And what do I mean by that? Well, we're looking at the futures here, obviously. Um, but what we'd like to see is some kind of what we call a correction bar. And that's simply a day on a daily chart where prices break under a prior bar's low, even better if it breaks under two bars lows, and then it rallies back up. And the thought behind that is that and we followed this rule is that if in a momentum move like that, you start trailing prior bars lows, in addition, those that might be buying dips intraday might use the daily chart of the prior bars low as a stop. And if it takes out those stops, the effect of that is to remove overhead supply. And well, you've got all of this supply right over here, of course. And that's where it's stuck right at the moment. So two things going on is where you can say, okay, this is absorbing supply. Well, because it's not every time it dips down a bit, it comes right back up again. So it's grinding sideways at resistance, which is bullish. However, what we'd like to see is, as I said, take out a prior bar's low. It takes out some stops. And as it grinds like this, like everybody knows this is extended, however you want to measure it. And so if it begins to move up, those that are buying in this area are going to be more inclined to take their money because everybody knows it's extended. Now it could accelerate a bit, but typically what happens is it reaches a point like maybe that high and then it rips right back down again. Whereas if it's going sideways like this and you get that correction bar where it takes out a low, it's got a higher probability to continue. So that's just common sense once you understand price action, but that's not happening. So it's more like well, I don't know what you call it, an ascending triangle or something like that, or wedge. I don't know, call it whatever. It's grinding its way higher. And if you look at this, maybe on a line chart, and maybe I have one here. Yeah, you can see it's kind of floating its way up. Is that the daily chart right there? Yeah. And so on a closing basis, and I'm seeing this as I'm looking at it because I didn't look at this on a line chart. It's a new high in the move. And so that's good, but it's just kind of grinding versus, where over here where it could have dipped. And I'm trying to explain what I mean here. It dips down and comes right back up again, and closes positive. So over here, what we would have looked for to explain this pattern would have been, it dipped down under a couple of bars and it came back up, and then it would have continued higher versus breaking down. So I don't know. We'll see if that happens. But right now it's just kind of a grind. You can see what's happening here, pre-market. Um, just basically kind of floating higher, you know, just been a grind day to day. Is what it is. All right. And Qs, well, that was a little lesson on just looking at the price patterns and what we look for as far as continuation patterns go. These are, deep retracement, right at resistance. Yesterday, the title was Momentum is Slowing, Coming to a Crawl. So we talked about pre-market and, this kind of a pattern. And this didn't break any prior bars lows. Look, boom, 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 all the way up. No prior bars lows. Now, maybe today would be that day where it dips down under prior bars low and comes back up again. Or, patterns like this, I don't know what would it be called? Any candlestick aficionados if today was a red day. Now it didn't take, or it took out the high, and then you had a red bar closing below the prior bar's low. It'd be some kind of a bearish pattern, but it went up. As Dan and I say in the empty lies, call it whatever you want. It went up and it went down, and it's a deep retracement on a short-term basis. And you see this sideways action here. And what would happen is it would break that support and then come down into this next support, which would be suggestive of a deep retracement down, entering this void below. And we wait to see if that's going to occur or not. Ideally, like I said, it's that correction bar, and I'd be thinking, hey, now we got a shot at going up here. But we don't have that. So we continue to wait. Spiders at resistance, whereas prices basically up a little bit above yesterday's high, which, at that pivot, yesterday we talked about slowing momentum. Where is this now? Right up here, maybe double top, or maybe, if this went sideways into, I don't know, 10 o'clock or 10:30, hanging up there at resistance, I'd start thinking long. But right now, I'm just thinking it's just chopping sideways, and I don't know what it's going to do, even though it's up a little bit here pre-market. Unfilled gaps waiting down below to get filled. And you can see the little grind that's happening there. And so SPX, as it grinds up, the upper strike moves up. And let me just recheck here. Where was 30? Things came down a little bit. So you see these things move fast. So that's where it was a little while ago. And now we have to lower that a little bit to 25, which is still far away. So it's got to enter this unfilled gap, which hanging here like this, you figure it could hit that and it would back off. And then it's got to go up another 20 or so points. And remember, there's a big open interest at 4,400. It's expiring next month, but puts and calls right there. So it tends to be a sticking point when that happens. And so far, it's still just stuck there. And, whether you're aware of the open interest in those options, it's stuck at this pivot and just chopping around. But if it starts to break 43.50, which is probably a little lower now that things have moved, still 43.50, 43.45-ish if it dips down. But common sense tells us if it turns out to be a bearish day, one day, this much more easily could be hit than the upside. And day to day, neither the up or the top has been hit because the market's not moving. So they've been expiring worthless. All right, transports, just a grind, doing nothing there. But the kind of pattern that could dip down. And so look, here's a bar that took out a prior bar's low, right, 3 days ago. And it's just trading inside of that range. So there's been no continuation or confirmation by trading above it or below it, but it just continues. And we talked yesterday in the green room in the morning that the airlines, which have been decimated, have started to make a little bottom. I don't know what they're doing here, but they're just kind of whipping around. It's in a severe downtrend, but look at that weekly bar, after such a decline. Some kind of retest would be ideal to get long, but yet to be seen. IWM, which pre-market yesterday, I thought, okay, remember here, I was like, okay, if this thing can get going on this little dip here, and rather than get going, it just collapsed into the gap. So this is, still trying to make the turn. Today may be the day. And what else here? Oil. That did not Did not make any turn yesterday whatsoever. It's down at this pivot. It's stabilizing here. And we'll see. Let's take a look at Bitcoin before I hand it over to Dan. Whoa, here it goes again. Amazing move, huh? Just amazing move. All right. Lastly, I'll just take a peek at gold, which is down here a little bit. Maybe going to make a turn here. So some of these things came down kind of hard, but this was extended. I was over the weekend thinking that the gold miners could make a turn. It's just tightening up, and they couldn't. So that didn't materialize, but no harm done. Maybe this will get turned around. Lastly, interest rates. Up here a little bit. It's on support, and this is, as far as the market's trying to go higher, we continue to watch this because this could easily start to flip up, and so far it has not. But the market didn't make much headway with this going down yesterday. So again, the dollar, which has been up here, I don't know what the dots, but that isn't moving either. So a lot of neutral stuff, except for Bitcoin. We'll see what today brings. Take it over, Dan.
Good morning. Yeah, somebody was asking me yesterday when I was talking about it's a helium balloon or melt up, as sometimes the media calls it. But it's just what that means is just steady demand greater than supply. Same with a steady sell-off, the opposite, liquidation, steady liquidation. So it's very bullish. I've been repeating every day, even though I wouldn't have, this is not a swing pattern unless it went sideways for a while, had a couple correction bars, internals cooled down a little bit. But we're finding individual trades that are superior, which we will continue to trade those. Like I just posted Massey. This was a out of the money earnings trade we did 2 days ago. We shorted the 60 puts, gapped down yesterday, took our money. Now based on the close, this is a fantastic new setup, daily, weekly for a bottoming pattern. I guess I had an alarm on path go off. This was earnings the other day, and I had an up alarm here. Now see, this is more of a continuation pattern. Chopping around here, you got a bear sandwich, top of the range, and a price void. So this is a superior setup over, spiders for swings. Let me reset the alarm here. So I see a gap down, 1740 was my alarm. Bulling here, breakout of a bottoming pattern and a buy setup, bullish 1, 2, 3 on the weekly from a Climo. That's on my list as a new trade. Let's go to earnings here. We only did one earnings trade. No, I only did one. Sometimes I do more than I give subscribers. And we did what's called a short strangle. We shorted the 91 naked calls. I forget what the low number was. We were in the 79 puts, took in a $1.10. So even though it's gapping way the heck up here, which is a very bullish gap, that's a buy on a pullback. But I got 98% probability we're going to have a nice open gain because we're still $3 out of the money with expiration tomorrow. And that's what that strategy is all about. We sell strikes far enough away where we think even the earnings gap is not going to come close to it. All right, Mara had earnings. This is one of the Bitcoin miners. So up a lot, no pattern though. Bitcoin strong. I got block on my, now see, that's a continuation pattern. It broke out, going sideways, and has a big void up to 25 bucks. Well, that's on my list. Mister is one of in this sector, but no entry. And you got riots and FUT. They're gapping up with MAR and Bitcoin, but no great patterns. All right, back to earnings. Affirm. This was on my bullish list, a buy setup after breakout, but the gap's too big. Uber was yesterday, Lyft is today. This one's always been under, well, for many, many months, been underperforming. Uber still is. Wow, AMC getting whacked. Do you remember this thing in GME where the Reddit boy toys and the fundamentalists, were saying, look, this thing's not worth more than $5. But when's reality going to kick in? And it looks like reality might be kicking in right now. T2, that had a bit, I thought that was earnings yesterday, but it wasn't. Greg said it was a pre-release of some new car products or whatever. So now day trade at best. I mean, it's gapping into this bar, but there's no, I can find better. BE 1137. So I said yesterday, this was a potential W bottom. So we'll watch that on a pullback. Twilio up 58 bucks, no pattern. MGM 39.70. It's already up a lot, no pattern. When I look at MGM, I always look at, Win and LVS or the usual suspects. That's actually gapping down, LVS. INFN, potential bottoming pattern, but up a lot. And I've already gone through a bunch of these and deleted. So if there's something not on my list, feel free to ask. 50 bucks, gapping right in the middle of the range. Recent IPO. Big old gap, 45 bucks. You need a pullback. This poor thing, ugly gap. Some bottom fishing there, but no interest. Rock Lab, potential bottoming pattern. Let's set an alarm at 460. And that's what I already did. I already did that. That just shows the consistency in my thinking. Beyond had a nice move, small little buy setup. I set an alarm at $7. I mean, if it were to get up there, it would be a bear gap negated. So I got no interest unless my alarm goes off. Part, another recent IPO, just range bounds. Nictra, I don't see many prints, but this is a nice bottoming. Now this, we talk about this in the green room every day when we look at these earnings things. And I think I said something like, if it opens flat, short yesterday's low. If it gaps over yesterday's high by not too much, then it's a shock pattern. That was MT Live yesterday. With a big void, bottoming pattern, bullish weekly from a Climo. Hey, look at TPR bottom right here. I sent it to Telegram. And shoot, I hope it doesn't go too much. But this is a bottoming pattern with a breakdown failure. Look how the 20 and 50 are flattening out. And so I said 30-minute high. That's a long watch. Here's a gap breakout. It's gapping in the range, but let's see how it closes. Migni, bottoming pattern. I think I set an alarm at 745. Another bottoming pattern, little buy setup. This one looks good. Okay, I put that one in this middle chart here, BGS. That's a nice little gapper. So what I do is put it in a 5 minute, 5 or 15 minute window, and I'll be watching it at the market open. Well, that's a great little bottoming pattern, gapping over a red bar. Sidna, same, but the gap's too big. EBS, I set an alarm, I think at 242. I can't tell where it's opening. These are pre-markets, Sony gapping down. That would be a great call spread if there's any juice. Yesterday's high. AZN's gapping a 65, another ADR. That would be a good put spread. 5 minute high. If there's any juice. I don't like ADRs with all those gappy bars, but I would do a put spread. Let me see what they were into the close. If there's good, if there's even $63 strikes. Many times there's not. 63. Wow, this had good juice too. Yeah, and there are. Okay, so this is on my definite watch list. Definite watch list for a put spread, particularly that expires tomorrow. Oh, Greg mentioned Home Depot yesterday. If it trades under this base, my alarm went off at 294, so I'll be watching that as a call spread. John Dale, it's a 1, 2, 3, 4. It's strong, breaking out. Sure, that's worth watching, Joe. BDX 240, nasty gap. And we'll come back. Bravo November. Trade sloppy. TDG gapping a 950. Wow, is that all-time highs? Yeah, that thing's gapping to all-time highs. But the run from 820, that looks like a short-term exhaustion gap. I'm going to put that in a window to check. I'm selling 1 DTE call spreads, maybe 10, 15, 30-minute low. This was nice, a little bull flag here. Gap in a 41, 30-minute high, that's an idea. Work, gap breakout, but I just don't like that it's run so much already, but on a pullback, WRK looks good. SN, another recent IPO, nothing. This looks like garbage. I can't tell where you're opening. But if it opens flat to a little bit down, I think it can drop. We'll come back to you. There's our tapestry we looked at. Mitzi. I don't see a gap, but it really is. I don't know. We can find better. Wicks up a little bit, no pattern. Triple V. I said yesterday, potential double bottom. It is gapping up. So that's put spread idea. This gapping down, no good pattern, ugly downtrend, Yeti. Gapping down, no pattern, but that's a breakout failure right there. Breakout failure, that looks ugly. This is gapping up near yesterday's high. There's no good price void, but 30-minute high would be a put spread as a bull sandwich or bear. We got 2 sandwiches in a row. All right, so that's it on the well, here Duolingo is earnings too. Man, that's a big gap too. Wow. That 30-minute low would be a 1 DTE call spread too. Well, this is on Sam's list. It's a buy setup. It came down far with this unfilled gap, but I had an alarm here anyway, 86.60, and now it's gapping over, so it kind of messed it up. Cop was on your list, Sam. A little buy setup. It's worth watching. I set an alarm. Bill, remember this was earnings the other day? So I don't know what's making this thing gap down now again. I didn't check the news because I don't care. Wow. No, it's not all-time lows, but that's some damage on Mr. Bill. Oh, really? So I'll watch this in the category of excessive gap, even though there's I use the term excessive gap when it's a big gap, obviously, but there's no real pattern. I can't call it a climactic. I can't call it a gap and snap. I just say, hey, this thing's crushed. I'm just curious to see if buyers are going to step up. So I'm going to watch you. UTZ, so this is another beautiful example of a bottoming pattern, gapping over a red bar. I see a couple prints here, 1275, which is too big of a gap. Let's watch it pull back. Hubs, was this earnings? 461, that's a big gap. That's a put spread idea. Hubs, it says earnings 215. So I don't know if, does anyone know, is this earnings yesterday? Because I didn't have it in my above list, but that's put spread idea with a nice gap. Ramp, gap's too big, 33.91. Lily, Sam, how did you miss this 1, 2, 3 yesterday? They've been in the news, among other things, their weight loss drug. But that was a beautiful 1, 2, 3 right there. Following this breakdown failure, red bar ignored, closing breakout. Nothing to do with it now, though. All right, block, I said I'm watching. MU, look at, I missed this big old move last week. So this is just sliced through resistance. I think this was earnings, this bar. Sliced through resistance, and this is a small bull flag. But look at the weekly as a 1, 2, 3, and the monthly is a little buy setup. So MU looks great. I've been saying though all week with the extended markets, I call that the wind at your back, the four horsemen. Wow, that's so you just got to be careful if the markets are a turn. I kind of use the term musical chairs, but MU is strong. Yeah, Mar had earnings gap on the top. CME could be a put spread.
Dan, your coin that you were after for a while, that's looking pretty good.
Well,
Now,
I said yesterday that I wanted a pullback to get into core long. Look at weekly, monthly. So I didn't pull the trigger. I was
okay,
waiting.
it's got room to go up. I mean, maybe it fills the gap or half the gap, or but it's a good daily pattern.
All right, HLIV, we're in already. This is another, we're in it, but this is another good example of a new trade setup versus spiders up 7 days in a row.
CME, that's maybe a 30-minute high. That gapped up, good daily pattern. Probably a good put spread if it's got juice.
Just going through some alerts here. I get car buy setup too. All right, tapestry buy. All right, see this BGS slam the gap fill, so I'm no interest in that. Look at beyond. My alarm went off. Hey, I said it. My alarm went off at 7.
Just don't eat it.
All right, let's close Disney here. Close Disney, take your money.